$1,200 into $56,000. How we took Nick, a high ticket coach in the NFL space, from struggling $5,000 to $10,000 to $56,000 in the month of March in just 32 days, right? You don't really need a big audience. You don't really need to hire a big team. And you don't really need to do much more work up front. You just need the right system. And I know everyone tells you that every single day, but it's true, right? And this is the proof. I'm going to go deep on how exactly the system we did to scale his business from $5,000 to $10,000 to $56,000 in 32 days in March, right? From February to March, to be realistic, to be frank, right? Before his baseline, he was struggling, right? He was $5,000 to $10,000 every single month, right? More so, inconsistent, relying on referrals, trying paid ads, wasn't working. Doing the organic content thing, it all wasn't working. Getting some traffic through, but it wasn't consistent at all, right? I'm gonna show you exactly how we did this, right? $56,000. Here is the ads manager to prove it all and make it come together. Okay, as you can see, amount spent a little over $1,200, right? Cost per acquisition was $37.78. We did end up closing 32 people, right? And so the conversion rate is a little low, to be frank, right? I'll be real with you, it's a little low, but there's a specific reason why it's a little low. I'm gonna go in that in depth a little later, okay? So we tracked the minimum deposits from the ads, right? Everyone that came through paid $500, or they weren't, not technically they weren't closed, right? Or they weren't really qualified, right? So if they didn't pay, they weren't qualified. If they did pay, they were qualified. There's a little bit of discrepancy here, right? 32 times 500, it's not 14K, it's 16K, right? Pretty easy math. Now, the minimum cost per acquisition was just under $42 at $41.69, okay? And that ROAS was 11.5, which is pretty sick, right? It's pretty sick just by itself, right? So that doesn't factor in the cost per person coming through, because the class did cost $1,750, not just $500, right? So let's break it down and show you the math on how we got here, okay? So the monthly revenue, $56,000. Not gonna say it again, right? Ad spend, $1,200, right? The ROAS was a 46.7x. Okay. Minimum deposit, right? $500 per person. Average order value. Everyone who came to the class paid $1,750, whether it was a PIF or whether it was a payment plan. But we tracked $500 because every single person had to pay that before they even got on the call to have that sales call, right? In order to decide if they wanted to pay in a payment plan or a PIF, right? Closed prospects was 32, and cost per acquisition per person closed was $37.78. Now, this number here took a little bit of redoing the math quite a few times, right? The revenue per $1 of ad spend generated was $46.67. That means we turned $1 into $46.67. So that makes sense. It's a little bit like a legal money printer almost, right? So what changed for him, right? What really moved the needle, right? Well, we sat down with him, we looked at his avatar, looked at who he really wanted to come through the funnel and who he really wanted to teach, right? We dialed in the messaging, we dialed in the offer, right? And so then we had a decision to make, what kind of funnel we wanted to direct traffic to. And we figured it was either going to be a VSL funnel or DMs. And he wasn't really skilled, selling in the DMs, right? So we made our decision. What was most probable for us at the time was a VSL funnel, which ended up being the right decision, right? I'm going to break it down to you right now and show you what the ideas were going into this. So it's very, very simple, right? You can see we have a minute-long video, okay? He, in fact, already recorded this before we even partnered up, right? Which is kind of crazy because we had to make like a 10-minute-long VSL, and it didn't really work out. And so we used this video, and it worked out immensely, right? So you can see the headlines are very, very simple. Have a clear offer, right? $1,500 per week. A little bit of cash grab, $500 off for this class. Okay, so after this, we did have an application, right? They go through the application experience level. This is a no-brainer question. We didn't care about this question. The question we really did care about is the qualification of money, because we were experiencing a lot of people are coming through unqualified in terms of not being able to afford it, right? So we did put payment, the price up front. I'm very transparent about this, right? If you were able to pay $500 now today, we define that as qualified, right? That's also another reason why we tracked it in the ads manager, right? That's it's a lot easier for us to determine revenue from just the minimum deposits rather than, PIFs or not PIFs. And, we really wanted that qualification, right? So if they were qualified, we're able to pay that $500, right? They would hit yes, obviously, right? But if they weren't able to pay that $500 now, let alone that $1,750, they would hit no, right? And they weren't even guided through the rest of the funnel at all through the application process. We didn't care about them, to be honest with you. Normally, you could downsell people to something lower ticket, but we weren't focused on that. We were focused on, scaling and getting people through for this specific offer alone, right? So that tracks back to Meta, right? That feeds the pixel on the thank you page. Everyone who could afford the $500, we wanted more of, right? So they were the only people who would go to the thank you page. You like the confetti, it's pretty sick, right? This is the thank you page. They were prompted to pay the deposit right now. And so a lot of them paid the deposit. Some of them didn't. It's not a perfect world. When that closer contacted them, though, and they found out they didn't pay the deposit, they would on that phone call, right? Or else they wouldn't be able, they weren't close and they weren't even qualified to go to the class, right? So they wouldn't have the sales call in general, okay? So going forward from here, we had, a couple of decisions, right? We had a nurturing process and we had the sale closer best practices, right? So those are for a different video, right? Pretty much we had the closer, call them, send them a selfie video, nurture them a little bit, see what the, biggest pain points are, and send them, specified videos based on, their personal goals, right? And the, the problems they were seeing inside the offer we presented them, the biggest, questions they had and, objections to it, we send them specific videos for, right? And the nurturing process, pretty much the same thing. Give them, time to, realize what they're getting into, and, persuade them with the research of the stuff we sent them, right? Because people are gonna, opt in for something like a high ticket coaching offer. You might have already done this yourself, right? You saw something great, you opted in for it, watched a VSL, booked the call, and you're like, okay, let me do more research, right? We want to present the research for them, right? We don't want them to go on Reddit or just Google search, is this good for me, right? We want to present them and persuade them in the right way, obviously ethically, for us to, help them as much as possible for our offer, obviously to make us more revenue, right? So that's pretty much it. That's, we had the questions, we had the biggest 5 objections, right? And the questions on here. So really, why it worked, right? So, we acted quick and, not a lot of people actually, are transparent with the price up front, right? Or even less so, don't include a deposit. They wait to do the deposit and do the calls, take price on the calls, right? So if somebody paid that deposit, they were pretty much closed, right? It's a very layup deal for the closer to, present the information to them, talk to them, and be like, all right, bet, like, you're closed, you're ready, let's get you in the class and get you started going, right? And also, like, for the people who didn't pay the deposit, more or less, they were still really interested, and it was still worth contacting them, So that's a big reason why it worked. And the nurturing of the closers and, the speed to, fixing stuff inside the ad manager as well. So I kind of digress, but what's next, right? So you obviously, you clicked on this video to see, how we scaled this guy to $56,000 in a single month, right? You're interested in how, you're interested in what you can do next. And, there's probably a question in your mind how you can implement this yourself, right? So that is exactly what's next. You can go below this video and contact me on Instagram, right? Or there's a link below this video to book a call with me. More than happy just to, make it make sense for you, right? See what I can do for you, and how to scale your current business, right? And we could talk. If it makes sense for you, great. If it doesn't, awesome too, right? So if you like this video, cool. I'll see you in the next one.